Hello, welcome or welcome back. As always, my name is Ari, and today it is shelf number 4. So this month I have been making it a goal to read a handful of books from each of my TBR shelves, and final week, final shelf, these are the books that I have received or purchased this year. Whether I got it in a book box and just haven't read it yet, or I purchased it myself and haven't gotten around to reading it yet. That's what this shelf is. Now, this shelf is kind of 2 shelves because it overflowed into my cart right here. So I'm going to show you both of them, and I'll show you which books I'm reading from these shelves. Alright, it's a little dark and gloomy down here because there's just no light on the floor, but I'm doing my best with what I've got. So how this there's no particular order to it. It's mixed all together. I do have my book of the month books stacked up, but there's stuff on top of them as well. So no real rhyme or reason, but which books am I reading, you ask? First up is A Discovery of Witches. I am buddy reading this week with Deidre Drake, who is an author friend of mine, and I've seen the television show and I didn't like it, so I'm hoping the book is better than the TV show. The next book I am reading is hiding up here. It is very stuck. This is The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is a science fiction book about like a alternate future, I believe, and I want to read this series before the end of the year, so I need to start now. Those are the 2 books that I'm grabbing off of that shelf. Let's move to the other part. So the other part is right here. The book that is backwards right there, the book that you see that's backwards is for a secret project, so I'm not going to show you that book. I'm also not going to read it this month. But yeah, this is just overflow. I did want to read one of the book of the month books, so I am going to grab Severance. I've tried to read this for a couple months now and just haven't got around to it, so now I'm kind of like forcing myself. And there's no way I'm going to be able to pull it off that shelf without moving some stuff around, so I'll take it off in a minute. Okay, so these are the 3 books that I am starting with. I have a feeling that I will get more than just these 3 books because I'm pretty much done for the month as far as books to read. Like, that's it. I have nothing else on my backlist that I need to read. I've read... actually, even if I get any more book box books, those would count for the shelf because they're new to me this year. So, starting 3, I have a feeling there will be more. I think I'm going to start with The Calculating Stars. Get some science fiction in here. I'll come back and let you know what I think of it. Alright, I finished The Calculating Stars, and I liked it better than I thought I would, honestly. I thought I would enjoy it and it would be like a 4-star because I know it's a lot about math and I am really dumb when it comes to math, but this was like 5-star. This was fabulous. So this takes place in an alternate history in the 1950s, and at the very beginning of this book in 1952, a meteorite hits the Chesapeake Bay and completely obliterates the eastern seaboard of the United States. And the meteorite hitting the Earth does all of these technical things that I am not going to attempt to explain, but it starts an extinction event where there are going to be a couple of years of like a very cold winter because of all the ash and stuff in the air, and then the damage to the ozone basically causes, or the damage to the ozone and all of the water released into the atmosphere from the meteorite hitting the ocean causes the earth to heat up. So greenhouse effect, extinction event type of thing, but they have time to prepare is basically like hundreds of thousands of people died on the eastern seaboard, but the rest of the world has time to prepare for the end of the world. And there is a UN-run space program that is trying to get people to the moon and to Mars to habitate off of Earth while the Earth becomes extinct, right? This follows Elma York, who was a WASP pilot during World War II, and her current job is she's a computer, which might sound weird, but in the 1950s, computers were people, specifically women, and they're just, it's an engineer, but a woman is basically what it was, because sexism, yay! If you've seen the Hidden Figures movie, basically what those women do, or what Elma's job is in this book, but she wants to be an astronaut, and she is part of a group of lady astronauts or wannabe astronauts, and basically this book covers like her pressing to be an astronaut while dealing with rampant sexism from the 1950s, and there are also aspects of racism. Elma is Jewish, and obviously Jewish people still faced a lot of anti-Semitism, and she has a very good friend who is, or she is, her and her husband are very good friends with a black couple who experiences racism. I should say Mary Robinette Kowal does really good job making Elma not so much of a white savior type, where she has moments of white saviorism, but she's quickly called out for it and then realizes that she has fucked up and tries to adjust her behavior accordingly and apologizes often. That's one of the things that I really liked about her character, is she's very big on, hey, I fucked up, I apologize, I will do better. So even if you're like me and you suck at math, there are a lot of math things in here that I just didn't understand. Like, I'm not even gonna pretend like I understood any of the math problems in here, but I don't think you need to know the math or science to really enjoy this story. So I highly recommend it, and I look forward to reading the other books in this series. Next up, I am going to pick up Severance by Ling Ma. I think this is about zombies, but I could be completely wrong. So let's find out. And I've finished Severance. I can honestly say this is probably the most boring book that I have ever read in my entire life. It's supposed to be boring though, I think. This is about a pandemic that basically destroys the entire world. This is the book of the month for December 2018. So I guess that's probably when it came out, since they usually release books of the month they come out. So we'll say this is 2018, way before COVID existed, and based on the responses that we've seen from COVID, this book doesn't really work how we've actually seen a global pandemic work. So, But how this pandemic works is it's not a virus, it's a fungus. So a fungal infection that basically turns you into a zombie. You do your routine. So whatever your schedule, whatever your routine, even though you're dead or dying, you just do your routine and until you rot away or somebody kills you. And humanity just quietly dies off. And I think this is supposed to say something about how the main character is very obsessed with routines and the comfort of routines, but she is one of the very few people who does not get this virus. And although she's comfortable in her routines and continues to do these routines, she's still lucid. And routine is typically boring. I guess you could have a fun routine, but I don't think that's the purpose. I think this is very just quiet and boring and routine, and it's kind of eerie, I guess, how you could have the world ending and still nothing really happens. But it's also really fucking boring to read. So yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, I recommend this wholeheartedly. If it sounds boring to you, like it did to me, I don't recommend it. It also has that trope thing that I don't like, where it like bounces all over non-linear time. So it's telling this one woman's story, but you have like years different. You've got like childhood, and then current pandemic, and then like during the pandemic, and just bouncing all over the place without really doing anything. And that was boring to me. So, or that's just like a storytelling device that I don't like. So yeah, boring. I don't have anything else to say about this. So I am moving on to A Discovery of Witches. It is Monday, if you care, but it's like 10 p.m. Monday night, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this tomorrow. Maybe Wednesday. I don't know. It depends on how interesting this is. The font's not tiny, but not huge. We'll see. Hopefully by Wednesday, I will be back to tell you what I think about this book. I'm done with Discovery of Witches. Now, in the background, you might hear power tools. They are doing construction, or like chopping down trees that are like hitting houses and hitting power lines outside, and it's literally been going on since 7:30 this morning, and it's like 4 in the afternoon. So I don't know if they're ever going to stop. I buddy read this with an author friend of mine, Deidre Drake. I am going to leave her review of this book down in the description below if you're interested in hearing her review. It was hilarious. I laughed out loud while reading it, or I laughed out loud while listening to it, so way funnier than my review is going to be. But I didn't like this, and she didn't like this either, but we had different reasons for not liking it, which is interesting. There is a woman named Diana Bishop, and Diana Bishop is a doctor of history, and she is currently studying at Oxford, looking at the Ashmole manuscripts, or she's currently studying at Oxford looking at alchemical texts, because that is her historical area of expertise. Her historical area of expertise is alchemy, right? The history of alchemy. So she is looking at the Ashmole text, which are real text, and pulls up Ashmole, I don't even remember what it is, 782 maybe, that's probably not right at all, but some generic number, and that technically is a real text, where it was noted as donated from the Ashmole collection to Oxford University, but no one's ever seen it. So it's like on the paperwork, but it doesn't really exist. But anyway, in this book, it's a magical text, and when she holds it in her hand, she realizes it's magical because she's been born a witch. Her parents were killed when she was very young, and she doesn't practice witchcraft because she thinks her parents were killed because they were witches, or some blah 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 bullshit stuff that doesn't really get explained in the book and isn't super relevant to the plot. I mean, I guess it is relevant to the plot, but maybe I just don't care. Anyway, most of this book is very descriptive. There's a lot of descriptions of academia and what the buildings at Oxford look like and smells and stuff like that, and none of that really bothered me. I actually kind of enjoyed that part. I do know Deidre hated that part. She was sick of all of the descriptions, but I'm okay with over descriptive text that don't really go anywhere. So I don't know, it just didn't bother me. I was cool with it. I also studied medieval manuscripts when I was in college, and I had studied some of the Ashmole collection online, not in person, and like I was aware of it, and so it was kind of interesting to hear descriptions of things that I was already familiar with. So I can also say that I think if you did not like the descriptions, that the television show A Discovery of Witches is probably going to be way better than you, because it's fairly close to the story. It just TV, so it's quicker. But yeah, it's been about a year since I've seen the television show, but I didn't feel like it was super wildly different from the book. So I think it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty close. If you don't like the writing style in this book, but you want the story of it, go watch the television show. So all that being said, the descriptions, the story itself, the plot, none of that bothered me. It was okay, not great. I didn't like this book though because of the romance. Now, if you've read Twilight and you like Bella and Edward's relationship, you'll probably like the romance in this book. But this is a very problematic romance. The male lead, Matthew, is a vampire, and he is super overbearing and super controlling, and it's just red flags everywhere. Now, the thing with this is I'm not automatically going to just hate the book because the guy in this book is like every single misogynistic red flag that exists. I mean, I personally don't like that, but this is fantasy. You can like problematic romantic tropes in fantasy as long as you realize that the difference between fiction and real life. Like, if a man is treating you like this in real life, like, run. Like, get the fuck out. It's not romantic. It's not cute. He's going to fucking murder you eventually, and he's definitely gaslighting you right now. But in fantasy, you can enjoy these horrible me Tarzan tropes where the guy tries to control the girl's entire life and it has to be like a domineering man. That's fine to enjoy in fantasy. I personally don't enjoy that in fantasy or fiction, so I don't like this trope because he's gross and disgusting to me and not somebody that I could ever see being attracted to. So I do want to read a couple of passages to kind of illuminate the types of problematic that Matthew is. So we're going with page 191 in the paperback, and this is rapey. Just turning away from him, his hand shot out and whirled me back around to face him. You're not getting off that easy. Matthew's voice was soft, but the sharp edge was back. Let me go, my mouth contorted into what Sarah called my sourpuss. It was enough to make my students quake. Right now I hoped it would make Matthew curl up in a ball and roll away. At the very least, I wanted him to take his hands off me. I wanted him to take his hands off my arm so I could get out of there. She had just said, let me go, and then she said, I wanted him to take his hands off my arm so I could get out of there. I warned you, and this is Matthew speaking again, friendships with vampires are complicated. I couldn't let you go now even if I wanted to. My eyes lowered deliberately to his hand. Matthew removed it with a snort of impatience, and I turned to pick up my bag. Matthew's arm shot out from behind, pressing my back against his chest so hard that I could feel every flexed muscle. Now, he said directly into my ear, we're going to talk like civilized creatures about what happened. You're not running away from this or from me. Let me go, Matthew, I struggled in his arms. This is the second time that she has said out loud to let her go, and his reply is no. No man had ever refused when I'd asked him to stop doing something. But I struggled again. Matthew's arms got tired. Stop fighting me, he sounded amused. You'll get tired long before I do, I assure you. And then it continues in there with him constantly refusing to let her go and her repeating, like, let me go. She even tries to use stuff she learned in a self-defense class. It doesn't work because he's a vampire, but, like, this is early in the book. They had met 1 or 2 days before, and she has clearly stated multiple times to let her go. And I get, like, this is a romance, but I understand that this is fiction and it's just a trope to show, like, how much he really cares about her, that even though she wants him to do something, he knows better. But in real life, this shit's not okay. Like, if you tell a man to let you go or tell a man no and he refuses, that is the only red flag you should see, and you should stay away from that man for the rest of your life if possible. Like, this behavior in real life is not okay. It's fine in a book. On page 338 is another one. I'm not going to read it, but if you remember from Twilight, that really creepy scene where Edward sneaks into her bedroom and watches her sleep all the time, but doesn't tell her. Like, this guy, like, a couple of times in this book, just sits there and watches her sleep. He tells her one time, he was like, I'm just going to watch you sleep, and if I get bored, I'll wake you up. And it's just like, that's fucking creepy. I don't know about you guys, but if I ever had a man, like my boyfriend, or even a friend, like anybody, male, female, I don't care, if I have anybody that I'm, like, sharing a bed or a room with, and they say, I'm going to watch you sleep, I'm gonna be like, nah, fuck y'all, I'm out. I'm not. That's fucking creepy. So I don't remember Matthew being as problematic in the television show as he is in this book. But that just could be because it's been a while. I honestly don't know if he is or not. I'm gonna say that I don't think he is, but yeah. No. So yeah, this romance did not do it for me. The plot was fine. I don't really have any interest in continuing the series. I pretty much felt the same at the end of the television show. Where I thought, like, I don't understand this romance, so I'm not gonna watch season 2. Actually, that's another thing that was weird to me. I don't understand what these two see in each other. Again, this is super insta-lovey. They're, like, I guess, spoilers, they're married within 3 weeks of meeting each other from the first time, and they, like, instantly fall in love with each other. And I, at least from what is said in this story, I don't see why either person is attracted to each other. Deborah Harkness has not sold me on why these two are in love, other than it's like a fated mate type of situation. But there doesn't seem to be fated mates, like, as just a, you see somebody and you're instantly in love type of fated mates. Like, they're probably destined to be together, but they seem to have had their own ability to fall in love with each other, and not they were just destined to. But I can't see what this, like, why? Like, tell me why they like each other, because I don't see it. I don't know. No idea. Anyway, that is A Discovery of Witches. Make sure you watch Deidre's video down in the description and see her thoughts on this. She didn't have as much to say about the relationship, but she didn't like the pacing of the book, so it's a completely different thoughts from mine. I will say that if you want a story like this but don't want Twilight for 30-year-olds, then I actually recommend reading Deidre's book. She writes about vampires, but instead of vampires and witches, even though there are witches in her book, hers is more vampires and gods and Vikings. And I'm going to leave a link to the first book in her series down in the description as well. Way better than this. Way better. So if you want this idea of like vampires and romance and intelligent people, read her book, not Deborah Harkness's book. Anyway, next up for me to read is I want to continue on with Saga. I don't know how many volumes I'm going to read. I'm on volume 2. There's like 9 volumes in here, I think. Or no, I've finished volume 2, so I'm on volume 3. And I think there's 9 volumes in here, so I'm going to read a couple of volumes until I'm just Saga'd out. And then come check back in with you and let you know how I'm doing. And then I'll grab something else to read. It's Thursday today, so I'm going to read today and tomorrow and see what I can finish in those 2 days, and then cut off this video so I have plenty of time to edit and upload this over the weekend. But I will be back once I'm done with Saga. Alright, I'm back. So I have actually kind of a lot of catching up to do. First off, Saga. This one, even though it's a compendium, it's not really broken down in a way where you could tell how many chapters were in each volume originally. So I know this has 9 volumes in it, and it's got 52 chapters. So 9 volumes, 52 chapters. I don't know how many chapters are in each volume. So I just read the whole thing. So excluding the first 2 volumes that I'd already read, that was about like 990 pages worth of comic. So this was a chunker. It took quite a while. I mean, it may be a comic, but it's still 992 pages. So I did enjoy this so much. There are still some volumes that haven't been printed yet. I think there's supposed to be 14 volumes total, and this only goes up to 9. And the author and artists are, you know, taking a break from it for a little while. So I don't know when those are planning to come out or anything like that. All I know is I really like this, though I don't think this is for everybody. This follows 2 aliens from warring races. One of them is a race of winged peoples, and the other is a race of horned peoples. And they're enemies. They have been enemies for a very long time, but they fall in love and have a baby. And this is very illegal. They're on the run from both of their governments, and the child shouldn't exist at all. Now, this is told from the child's perspective. The child is the narrator looking back on her childhood, I guess, her life, her early life. This is very graphic, as in like rated R, rated NC-17 graphic. There is full frontal nudity of both genders. And yes, there are only 2 genders in this book, so if that bothers you that there are only male and female genders, then maybe this isn't for you either. But yeah, there's a lot of dicks and a lot of vaginas. So if that bothers you, that's maybe don't read this book. There's also a lot of very graphic language where they use words that a lot of people are not comfortable with. So if any of that sounds up your alley, you're gonna love this. If any of that sounds not up your alley, then maybe don't read this. There are plenty of other things for you. I loved this, but it was hilarious, and I liked the graphic nature of it because I'm just not offended by things like that. So I'm gonna put this down now, but rest assured, this is fucking fantastic. Then I finished that a couple days ago, 2 days ago, or no, I finished it early yesterday. So today is Saturday, it's Saturday afternoon, about 4 p.m. I finished that probably like 11 a.m. Friday morning, but I felt bad all day yesterday, so I didn't really feel like recording because I just felt awful. So I kind of like stayed in bed and tried to read all day, even though that didn't work out very well. Anyway, you don't care about me feeling ill, but yes, I've done things other than just finish that, is what I was getting at. I did pick up Early Riser by Jasper Fforde. I got this, I think last month or maybe the month before, in my sci-fi book box, and the premise of this sounds so cool. This is like a sci-fi futuristic novel where humanity, or where the planet has like mostly frozen over and humanity sleeps through the winter, so they hibernate to survive the winter. And this is about somebody, like one of the very few people who are required to stay awake during the winter and help like acclimate or help keep like the slumberers alive, right? Make sure nothing goes wrong, and if something does wrong, like deal with that. So as you could tell, I DNF'd this just about 100 pages in. This, it takes place in Wales, so it is like our planet, but the language of this just drops you, or how this book's written is it just drops you into this situation, and it's got like its own language, its own slang, and you really have no idea what's going on, and you're supposed to kind of like pick up on it as you go, but they use all sorts of language without explaining the meaning of anything that they're talking about. It even has like footnotes, and the footnotes only reference things that exist in this world and not in our world. So it's like it'll give you a footnote of something that you're like, I have no idea what this is, but the footnote doesn't explain anything because you still don't understand the world. So it was very confusing. I wasn't really sure what was going on. I didn't really understand anything they were talking about, and then I just wasn't that interested in the story they were telling me and the things that I did understand to continue reading this. So I'm very disappointed because I thought this would be a really good book because the premise sounded so cool, but like the actual execution of it was like, I don't care, and what the fuck is even going on? Like, I don't mind books where you don't know what's going on, but it needs to be interesting enough to make me want to find out what's going on, and this failed at doing that. So I went ahead and DNF'd this. It just wasn't worth my time to continue reading it because I didn't give a shit. So from there, I picked up another book, and that was Girls with Razor Hearts by Suzanne Young. This is the second book in the Girls with Sharp Sticks series, which I read Girls with Sharp Sticks, I think in 2019. I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I read it in 2019, and I really, really enjoyed that story. And then I picked this one up in January when I was planning to read like a bunch of the sequels to the stories that I was enjoying, and I ended up in January reading a different series by Suzanne Young as like a 24-hour challenge, and that was the what is that called? The Program series. It's on the back of the book. It was the Program series, and I hated it. That was one of the most awful series I've ever read in my entire life. And so from there, I just lost interest in picking up this book because I hated her other writing so much. But I went ahead and felt like, okay, this is on my shelf. This is going to be a quick read because it's young adult. This will be great to be like the last book in this video. And if I don't like it, then I can DNF it, or I could just finish it really quick because, like I said, this is young adult. I knew it was going to take me less than like a day to read it. This is like 380 pages of young adult that's going to take me 4 hours to read. 4 or 5 hours to read, which it did. So I picked this up, went ahead and read it, and it's okay. It's way better than the program series, I can tell you that. So this, I can't really tell you a whole lot about this book without a huge spoiler for the first book, but in Girls with Sharp Sticks, we follow a group of young women in a finishing school called the Innovations Academy. And the entire time you're reading the book, you're uncomfortable. You're like, what kind of school is this? This is really weird how these girls are behaving, because they're all perfect young ladies and very submissive and very docile, and it gives off creepy men vibes, like really hard creepy men vibes. So this one is after the big plot reveal at the end of the last book. The girls leave the academy, and in this book they're attending a different school that's a private school, and this one is much more overtly feminist, and it's about like rape culture and boys will be boys culture, and just forgiving young men for harassing women while blaming the young women for being harassed. Except for this one is like really extreme. This is far more black and white, where all men are evil and all men are rapists, which is not the real world isn't like that. And this has like reflections on the real world. It's just taken to a very extreme level. So I thought that the message in here was very good, especially for a teenage girl, but as an adult it's a little bit too in your face, overbearing, and I would have liked more of a subtle message than all men are evil rapists, or all men support evil rapists even if they're not evil rapists themselves. So I get it. I like the feminist message. I just thought it was a bit too much. This basically, it's too easy to set this aside as it's not realistic, when it is realistic, just not realistic to this extent, where the events in this book are extremely likely to happen to girls. It's just not all of these events aren't likely to happen to the same girl as they do in this event, or in this book, if that makes sense at all. I'm not sure if it does. But like I said, it's hard to talk about this without spoiling the events of the first book. So if you want feminism with a twist, then I think this series is good. I think the first book was much better because it was much more subtle. Just be prepared for creepy vibes in the first book, and if the idea of sexual assault and like the abuse of teenage girls makes you uncomfortable, then stay away from this series. Even if the girls win in the end. But yeah, interesting. I thought it was 3-star worthy. It's not great, but I didn't hate it like I expected to, and I will be continuing with the series. Anyway, that is it for this video. I do have, it's Saturday right now, so I'm gonna go edit this, so I have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to read, so I will be reading some other stuff. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and check out my end of month wrap up to see what other books I read outside of the vlogs that I did all month, because there were other books that I read that weren't just in these vlogs. It has been a very successful reading month, so that video is going to have a lot of books in it. But anyway, hit the like button if you liked this video and you want to support me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!